I believe the mayor's calling in right now.
I need the meeting ID number.
It is
856.
2479.
2479?
Yes. 0404.
Okay, we are live.
Password.
Shelley, we're live. Please don't give password.
We ready?
Hang on a sec. Okay. She's having some difficulty. Can you unmute yourself, Mayor Foxton? Hmm. Okay. So I've just sent the mayor another phone number to try. I think what we're experiencing is that Zoom's a pretty busy method of communication these days. And so she's having difficulty probably trying to find a phone line that will let her in, but it looks like she's in now. Mayor Foxton?
I'm on the phone.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. We can hear you now.
Okay, so are we ready to start?
We are live.
All right. And I'm
Going to begin now, folks.
due to COVID-19 and recommendations by Waterloo Regional Public Health to exercise social distancing, the Township Administrative Office is currently closed to the public
Until Monday, May 31st, 2020. Members of the public are invited to view this open meeting electronically by accessing the meeting stream at the hyperlink calendar.northdumfries.ca/council. Under the video column, click on the link for the meeting date that you wish to watch. Following the close of the meeting, a recording of the meeting will be available. While in-person participation for Committee of the Whole is not feasible at this time, members of the public are invited to submit written comments to Ashley Sage, the clerk, at asage@northdumfries.ca, which will be provided to the mayor and council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Councillor Rossner, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Rolliman?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And myself, Mayor Foxton, is here. Can I please have approval of the agenda, which will be moved by Councillor Rolliman and seconded by Councillor Gillespie?
Council adopt the May 25th, 2020 council agenda as presented, and that council adopt the amended agenda format for the scheduled meeting, date and time that includes a combined committee of the whole and regular council agenda format as outlined in section 7.6 of the procedural bylaw number 3130-20. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman,
Yes.
Councillor Oster,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Thank you. Next, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Myself, Sue Foxton, is declaring pecuniary interest on May 25th, 2020. The agenda item is CAO Report 10-2020, which is under A.1.4A. So that was 8.1.4A. And the general nature of the disclosed interest is my son-in-law works for Reed Heritage Homes. I have sent this notice, a copy of this notice, to the clerk, and she has it for the file. Are there any other disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to the public meeting. And we are on the, hang on a sec here, guys. I got my papers all screwed up. Financial relief due to COVID-19 pandemic, phase 2. Ms. Stedel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't really have anything to add to this report. The recommendation is that we realize under the COVID-19 pandemic that there still are ongoing conditions that are causing issues financially with residents. So the recommendation is to waive penalty and interest on property taxes for one additional month through to the end of June 2020, and also to continue waiving NSF fees for on township accounts until the end of June as well. And further that the township waived the permit application fee through to the end of September 2020. CAO McNeely may wish to speak to that one, and to item 4, which is that council endorse a launch and ongoing maintenance of an online commercial business. But I'll take any questions that anyone may have on the financial portions.
If you have a question, could you please state your name?
Derek,
Okay, Derek, go ahead.
just a quick question, Shelley, because I've been asked a couple times, if people want to pay their taxes, do they just come up to the NDCC or do they contact somebody or?
So we have a few methods of payment that they can make. The township offices are not open at this time. There is, however, a box outside of the front door, so they can come to the NDCC and they can drop their payments off there. They can send them by mail. The post office is a little slower to get things here. But we are not adding the penalty and interest. So if it does come that way, we will take into consideration what the postage states are on those, anything that's mailed. And in addition, they can pay online through their bank. There's, if they go into their banking application app, they can actually find the Township of North Dumfries as a customer, as a vendor, and they can just add their tax roll number, which is on their tax bill, so they can pay in that manner. And if they do need another method, we do have email. You can pay by email. But we're not promoting that at this point in time. It's an option that's just become available, and we're still working through the processes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple questions, actually 3 questions on the
Go
report.
ahead, Councilor McCreary.
My first question, just an observation when I was just sort of ballparking some numbers. I'm wondering how the audit's coming for the 2019 financial statements, because normally at this time we would have been signing off on financial statements. Yes, things must be behind, I guess, because of COVID, but I'm wondering if you can give us an update on how the audit's coming.
So we've had a couple of issues. We've had our own issues internally trying to complete the audit, just with a number of other items that came up, but also some issues. Our auditors have been having some challenges as well with their staffing change that's been ongoing. So we are coming into the finish line, hopefully this week. And we'll be able to get there. We're planning on, it'll probably be the second meeting in June that we're able to bring the financial statements back. But we are, like I say, it's still in the progress.
Okay, so just a short delay then, 1 month probably. My second question or observation is, in order to offset some of the costs of COVID, and I'm wondering about the Director of Public Works. I know CAO McNeely's taking that on right now, and he's doing a number of different jobs. And I think that we shouldn't be overworking people for too long. And I'm wondering, are we going to start the hiring process for the Director of Public Works and get that moving? Or has something started that we're not aware of?
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor McCreary, if I may.
Go ahead.
So both positions, Director of Recreation and the Director of Public Works, the posting actually goes out this week. And we had previously identified to Council and other correspondents that we were looking at an early July 2020 start date for those 2 positions. And as Council may recall, in an earlier report done several months ago, we have appointed a review panel that would include selected members of Council to be part of that recruitment process when we get to the shortlist. But yes, we are still online for that July time period.
Okay, good. So it's still hopefully in July. And one other comment, I'm just wondering if we've heard anything or had any feedback about the region's approach to the township's arrears. I guess the way payments work, we have to pay the region whether or not we have received the tax money from the taxpayers. So when our arrears go up, we're going to have to pay the region anyway and finance it through our own cash flow. What's the status of that discussion?
So I can answer that. So Councilor McCreary, we actually received a copy of the report that's going to be on the regional agenda, I believe tomorrow. And that is the Commissioner of Finance has prepared something that will actually start in July. That's the proposal, so that if the townships are not able to collect their full amount of taxes, that he can make arrangements with each of the different not sorry, just townships, but all municipalities, the lower tiers in the region of Waterloo. We haven't got details on exactly how the program will work, but we will be able to delay paying a portion of the regional levy for the portion that's not collected. However, the intent is that all of the regional levy will be still paid by December 1st, which is the final due date for all regional levies. So there is a work in progress, and I can forward that copy of the report out to all members of council if you wish to review.
I'd certainly like to see it. Okay, thank you. Those are the 3 questions I had.
Anyone else have any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to read the motion, which is moved by Councillor Osner and seconded by Councillor McCreary. Do you want to read it in whole, Ashley, or just as presented?
I can read it in whole. It's fine.
All right, go ahead, please.
Okay, so that report number FIN number 10-2020 be received, and that council provide township support to residents and businesses for an additional 30 days by A, waiving penalties and interest on property taxes for the month of June of 2020, B, waiving non-sufficient funds NSF fees charged by the township on customer accounts for the month of June 2020, and that the township waive the permit application fee through to the end of September 2020 for commercial businesses applying for sandwich and or mobile signage, and that council endorse the launch and ongoing maintenance of an online commercial business directory through to the end of December of 2020. Roxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Thank you. Now we have the 2020 Community Grants Allocation Program updates due to COVID-19. Questions? Seeing no questions, are we prepared to move the motion? It is the grants program motion is moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rollman. Ms. Sage, would you like to read the motion, please?
Certainly. That FIN report number 11-2020 be received, and that the 2020 community grants approved for the Air Charity Barbecue allocation of $3,500 be carried forward to 2021 community grants due to the cancellation of the event under COVID-19 restrictions. And that the 2020 community grants approved for the Countryside Camp Shalom allocation of $1,500 be reallocated to the new virtual fun fair cost due to the COVID-19 restrictions not allowing the in-person event, and that the treasurer be authorized to carry forward any funds to the 2020 community events funds if the organization cannot proceed with the event in 2020 due to the COVID-19 restrictions. And further, that the treasurer bring back a report in the fall with an update on the community grants program as they relate to restrictions under COVID-19. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Now we are at the Energy Plus dividend update. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I have moved by Councillor Rollman, seconded by Councillor Gillespie. Clerk, please read the motion.
That report number FIN number 12-2020 be received, and that the treasurer transfer the Energy Plus dividends declared for 2019 in the amount of $252,000 and $252,173 to a reserve as indicated in the 2020 budget. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
So that is passed. Next, we are on to the Reed Heritage Home ones, of which I have declared conflict in. I will now shut off and try and call back in after.
Okay.
So Ms. Settle, if you could please,
Actually, Mayor Foxton,
Catch
do you
me?
want to hold for a minute?
sure.
We are going to try putting you into the waiting room without you disconnecting.
Okay.
Second. Sorry, Denise, can you see?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, so is that correct, Denise? Looks like everybody's on the line that should be here.
Okay, so Councillor Osner, you'll be
Correct.
the deputy mayor position.
Yes. Sorry, I'm trying to, what page is this, the report on?
Page 23.
Of, like, my report's 187 pages?
Yeah, page 23 of page 187,
Okay,
8.1.4.
sorry, 23? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so does council have any questions or on the report?
I have a question, Derek.
Okay, Councilor Roman, go ahead.
My question is, have we contacted Driver Check? I don't know what the status is. I know they use a lot of the parking stall spaces. Just want to make sure that there won't be any issues there.
If I may, Deputy Mayor Ostner, through to Councillor Roloman. I have been in discussion with Diane Holmes. She's the Vice President Enterprise. And over the last week or so, we've had an exchange of emails. They are at this point in time undergoing two elements. One is they had actually started to ramp up in terms of more remote connections for their staff personnel at their head office, even before COVID-19 materialized. And of course, during that time, they have significantly expanded that virtual footprint. So they were already moving that way as a business enterprise, and they've been using this as a trial and balance. The other aspect was that they have historically leased spaces or had some sort of arrangement with Knox United to use their parking lot off of Northumberland Street for some of their staff. And last fall, they initiated discussions with Knox United to try and expand the footprint of that parking lot, as well as make improvements to the existing parking lot with the objective of trying to improve their capacity. Those discussions have not been finalized. So in my discussions with Driver Check through the VP, they did not see there being an issue with the 15 additional spaces being allocated to Reed's Heritage Homes, and that's why I picked that specific number. And I'm still trying to find through others how we may be able to accommodate the additional demands that periodically will arise as Reed's goes through various aspects of their building program between now and July 2021. So those may come about in part through further spaces being made available because of changes at Driver Check, and or through other arrangements that I'm able to secure with other area landowners where arrangements can be made to utilize their properties for the purposes of off-street parking.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions?
I have a question or a comment.
Okay, Councilor McCreary, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if we need to do this, or we need to set aside the 15 spots of almost a maybe permanent basis for about a year. Does Reed's Heritage Homes, do they pay us anything for that? Anything for like the inconvenience of having that set aside exclusively for them? Because I have noticed that that parking lot is very often full.
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor McCreary. So historically, and I'm talking pre-COVID-19, that parking lot was almost exclusively utilized during the typical business week by Driver Check. We did not have a historic or financial arrangement with Driver Check for the use of those spaces. The effort was trying to keep cars off of the adjacent residential streets and the associated conflict that would occur with those neighborhoods. So the report as presented does not account for or signal any financial compensatory package. It basically carries the past practice, which was to try and make parking available. The evenings and weekend periods would be available for the general population, but I'm working on the premise that most of the parking spaces during the typical business week would be occupied either by Driver's Check, Reed's Heritage Homes, and the odd parking space available for the general public.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Are there any other questions? No? And Ashley, can we have the motion, please?
Certainly. So moved by Councillor McCreary and pre-assigned Councillor Ossner as a seconder. Would another member of council wish to second the motion? Councillor Rolman?
So Roland, yeah.
Okay, so moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Rolman that CAO report number 10-2020 be received and that Reed's Heritage allocated the equivalent of 15 cars parked stalls at the Gibson Street municipal parking lot for the usage of their personnel and construction trades for the period of Monday to Friday, with the occasional Saturday through to July of 2021, between the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and that staff continue to work with area landowners in an attempt to provide alternate off-street parking spaces to accommodate the construction personnel and trades. So Councillor Ossner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolman?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Certainly. So that motion is carried. So we'll wait for Mayor Foxton to return to the meeting.
Hello?
Yes, you're back in the meeting now, Mayor Foxton.
Oh, thank you. So we're at the consent agenda and adoption of the committee of the whole resolutions. The motion is moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rolman. Ms. Clerk, do you want to please read the motion?
Certainly. So Mayor Foxton, I'm going to remove the one item from the adoption of the resolutions where you have a conflict of interest.
Okay.
That item will be removed and voted on separately. So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rolman that council adopt the recommendations as adopted and presented by Committee of the Whole dated May 25th, 2020. And that will be the recommendation for report number FIN-10-2020 Municipal Financial Update for COVID-19 Pandemic. 2, report number FIN 11-2020, the 2020 Community Grants Allocation Program Update due to COVID-19. And 3, report number FIN-12-2020, Energy Plus Dividend Update. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolman, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Oster?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
So that motion is carried. So we're now going to move to the motion, the item that you had a conflict of interest for, Mayor Foxton.
And I'm going to step out of the room.
Yes, you will for that. Yes, please. Okay, does a member of council wish to move and second the motion?
I'll move it.
Okay. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Councillor Gillespie.
Okay, so Councillor Ossner has assumed the chair, the deputy mayor chair position as well again. So that council adopt the recommendation as adopted and presented by Committee of the Whole dated May 25th, 2020. And this is pertaining to report number CAO-10-2020 Reed's Heritage Home, request for assigned use of the Gibson Street Municipal Parking Lot. Councillor Rolman, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried. So Mayor Foxton can return to the meeting.
Okay, Mayor Foxton is back in the meeting.
Thank you. So we'll move on. So we are good to go.
We are,
We're
yes.
down to the approval of the minutes of April 27th.
Yes, so moved by Councillor Rolman and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that council approve the following minutes. Council meeting minutes dated April 27th, 2020. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolman?
Yes.
Counselor Oster,
Yes.
Counselor McCreary,
Yes.
and Counselor Gillespie.
Yes.
Right, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Items for discussion. We have the correspondence from Mike Hack regarding traffic calming measures for Hall Street. Comments or questions, ladies and gentlemen?
I have a comment.
Carry on.
My mom lives at the corner of Hall and Wilson, and I spent some time there in the last few weeks, and it's extremely busy. Mike is right. Maybe putting a center line down the middle of Hall Street like we did on Paul Avenue in Roseville would work. Without the center line, I find people are driving quite quickly. If we can maybe put a center line down, that might help. I know we talked about eventually putting a raised crosswalk at Hall and Wilson for the school. That would help. A three-way stop would probably help. There's a lot of traffic, and it looks like it's all traffic that's going up to Hilltop. It's cutting through during the construction, basically. So even a temporary three-way stop would be a good project, I thought.
Other comments? I like the suggestions. Definitely the painting of the line, but I like a temporary three-way stop as a tester.
Yeah.
What about the raised sidewalk? Do you think that makes more sense than the three-way stop?
I think three-way stop is probably easier to put in place quicker than raising a crosswalk.
True, very true. Council, would you put forward, Ms. Sage, can he put a motion on that, you guys, and have a second? Andrew?
Madam Mayor, if I can we've got a procedural matter. So to have a three-way stop, we need to identify the intersection, and council actually has to pass a bylaw under the Highway Traffic Act to amend our traffic and parking bylaw. So we never identified an intersection. So I'm assuming that and Councillor Rowland, please correct me if I'm wrong, in your presentation, were you proposing the three-way stop at the intersection of Willison and Hall, where the school crosswalk is?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so Madam Mayor, we can do one of two things. Council can prepare a resolution that would direct staff to bring forward a bylaw for enactment to create a three-way stop intersection at Hall and Willison, which would then be entertained on June the 8th. Or if council has a sense of urgency, council today could say, as part of the bylaw section, that a bylaw be presented, and we would just have to assign the bylaw number in sequence to amend the traffic and parking bylaw to facilitate the identification and enforcement of a three-way stop at the intersection of Willison and Hall. And if we're doing this, is it temporary? In other words, is it coincident with the regional road project on Northumberland? Is this a go forward? Because if there's going to be a sunset in terms of this is a temporary measure, then we could do one of two things. We can either articulate the date of the length of the duration of this bylaw, or when the regional project finally wraps up, we could repeal the bylaw at that point in time.
Couple of things. The school's there. I don't think it's a bad thing to have something permanent there, but why don't we do it a test for the time of construction on the owners that we will revisit at that time to see if it becomes a permanent. And the other thing I was thinking about is, no, I'm going to leave it at that. And, the other one was it's June 8th is not that far away. That's only 2 weeks, correct, CEO McNeely?
Yeah, I mean, it's roughly 2 weeks removed. But if your resolution wants it as a pilot project, and then for sake of argument, staff return back with a report on, and I'll say the October meeting. By then, we'll obviously have had a reasonable period of time to assess its effectiveness. And council at that point in time may wish to have that as a go forward, similar to what we did at Main Street at Jedburgh Dam. Now, in terms of the line marking, certainly we can add that to the scope of work. We already have the painting contractor, when they're retained, to do the crosswalks at that location, as well as, if council recalls, in 2 or 3 locations in both the east and west lanes, we had the word slow painted on the asphalt, as we've done in all of the school zones, to reinforce that there's a school area, and obviously pedestrian traffic would be heightened in those areas. That's scheduled for the July time period, and we just add the center line at that point in time when they're already mobilized on that street.
So, Councillor Rowland, what do you think?
Well, I like that. Just curious, have we already selected a line painting contractor? I haven't seen that RFP come out.
No, sorry. We did the bid.
Okay.
We have the bid results, and it's actually going to be on the June committee meeting as an award. It's for a 3-year contract,
Okay.
20, 21, and 22. And as part of that award, we have an annual budget that we've normally assigned for pavement marking. And we, based on the bids, we have, they're slightly underbid. So we have the ability, if council wishes, to look at a center line on Hall Street as part of the 20 deliverable. The pavement markings for the school zones were baked into the budget and the bid document for each year in the 3-year contract.
So if we went ahead and said, let's put up the test stop signs now, and is this line paving coming to council the June 8th meeting or later on in the month?
So, Madam Mayor, if I may, the contract award for line pavement markings will be presented as part of the June 8th council meeting. If council wishes the bylaw to create the 3-way stop, we can also put that into the June 8th meeting. I would have staff order the extra signs now so that effectively, if council does enact the bylaw on the 8th, the sign can be installed the morning of the 9th.
Are you comfortable with that, Councillor Rowland?
I would like to do it sooner. Can we enact the bylaw quicker? Can we do it today?
So if council wishes, you will not have the bylaw in front of you, but if you authorize first, second, and third reading of a bylaw, and the clerk will have to give us what the next bylaw number is in sequence. And what I'm communicating to you is it would be for a installation of stop signs for both the east and westbound traveled lanes of Hall Street at the intersection of Willison, which has the effect of making a 3-way stop. And this would be an amendment to the township's traffic and parking bylaw.
I like that.
So, Ms. Sage, could you please draft that? And while you're doing that, do we want to look at some other correspondence there? There's the Gravenhurst correspondence, which we talked about Garden Center, which is irrelevant now. The Hillside Lake one, which also is irrelevant now because I believe they're allowed to open. High-speed connectivity and rural broadband. I believe, Councillor Gillespie, you wanted to talk about high-speed as well.
Yes.
So if you'd like to start now.
Okay, well, we've had one of my residents in Ward 4 was on the CBC radio about the cost of his internet. So this is a continual problem. Councillor McCreary had the same problem with excessive costs on her internet. I'm at a loss to know how to handle this. Like, what do we say to residents now? It's coming? when is this
Well,
coming?
actually, you know what, even though saying it's coming, to get the work done for our township, because the RFP has been put out, I believe the time and duration, it's going to take a while to build it and put it into place. So we're still talking months out. You and possibly a year. CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, if I may, to sort of assist and add to your commentary, Madam Mayor is quite correct. The SWIFT, the Southwest Integrated Fiber Technology grouping, of which the region of Waterloo is one of a series of municipal partners, has issued approximately 6 weeks ago an RFP for Waterloo region. The RFP focuses almost exclusively on the 4 townships within Waterloo. The document identifies to a series of pre-qualified internet service providers a bid document where they, being the private sector, would identify how they would propose to bring forward enhanced broadband connectivity to the eligible areas of the 4 townships. And when I say eligible, the agreement and the funding model that was negotiated between SWIFT and the provincial and federal governments excluded areas that already benefit from a 50-10 service ratio. And so that would be only the areas outside of that 50-10 service threshold. That does affect significant portions of the rural countryside within wards 3 and 4. We are understanding that between the time of the close of the bid documents, which will be, I believe, in the middle part of June, then there's a review committee that's been appointed by SWIFT that will evaluate each of the proposals, partially with alignment with the bid document and the associated specifications, value for money, and there'll be a scoring matrix. And from that, there'll be a recommendation from that review committee to the full SWIFT board for contract awards. So they're looking at the fall of 2020 as the award window. Contracts will then be negotiated with the award-winning companies, and there could be multiple companies across all 4 townships. And then physical construction starting in the latter part of 20 and in through 2021. The timeline for how long one or more projects will take depends on the extent and nature of the project itself. And obviously in advance of not knowing who those award bids are and the geographic footprint, I can't tell you how long they'll take, but that's the general chart that's been framed by SWIFT. And I can't even tell you what areas of the township may benefit from this enhanced broadband connectivity through the SWIFT program, because we're out in the market, or SWIFT is out in the marketplace right now.
You know, that's all good and well, but it doesn't address your issue. So I suggest we do a resolution to the federal and provincial government talking about the exorbitant cost of internet connection for the rural areas, asking for compensation or a way that they can help address this. Would that be something, CEO McNeely, that we could draw up and have it sent out and also distributed to all the municipalities through AMO?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it is. So there has been some debate at the CRTC about 2 factors. One is the price for service, and as well as the availability of service. And portions of those earlier CRTC decisions have been challenged by some service providers as it relates to a tariff of fees. But certainly, if council wishes a resolution sent to the federal government, so it would be, I believe, Industry Canada, and we certainly would want to make our local MP, Mr. May, aware of the resolution, framing such that essentially you're endorsing Armour Township's resolution, asking for a reduction in the overall monthly levy for internet services and the cost to the average residential and the individual residents.
So Councillor McCreary and Councillor Gillespie, would you be willing to support such a resolution? Councillor McCreary.
I certainly would be. Like, my issue is not so much like I don't have fast, reliable internet. It's just the cost is absolutely ridiculous. In March, for my March usage, I got a bill of $450 for 1 month. I saw the CBC Go Public article, and I could feature two people. There was a gentleman in Ward 4, North Dumfries, and there was a woman in Pickering. And I noticed that I had exactly the same plan as the woman in Pickering. It was a Rogers Rocket Hub. I was being charged exactly the same thing as she was. And she'd gone to Go Public about the terrible bill she'd received when she was working at home. So they gave her a 50% off deal for 2 years because she had gone to Go Public. When I called Rogers to complain about my Rocket Hub cost, they also offered me the same 50% off my bill for 2 years. Now, I haven't had a bill since then. I don't know if this is really going to be true. If it is, it'll at least be helpful, but it's only for 2 years. But I will have to say that Rogers has a terrible attitude towards rural customers. A few days after that deal, I got the 50% off deal, I had some Rogers public relations people call me for some reason, I guess, see if I was happy. And the call didn't end too well, but they told me that so they had to charge me that because of where I lived, period. That was it. The woman I was speaking to told me that the last month she had used in her household about 600 gigabytes worth of data. And she paid some flat rate, of $80 or whatever to use all that data. And I told her, well, if I had done what you had done, I would have received a bill well over $1,000 for 1 month. And she just said, we have to do that. It's because of where you live. And I think that is so completely unfair. This urban rural divide in internet is just reached the point of being ridiculous. So we do have, as CAO McNeely points out, two issues. One is the price they charge rural customers if they happen to be lucky enough to have it. And then there's the issue of people that don't even have it at all.
So if I understand you correctly, you're being charged because you're rural, not because of your usage, but because of where your location is?
The plan that I get is a plan for a Rogers Rocket Hub. So it's a cellular plan. Don't totally understand this. I mean, if you're in a city, you might get it through cable. You might get it for fiber optic. You might get it over high upgraded phone line. The only way I can get it is through this thing called a Rogers Rocket Hub. And that is because I am in a rural area. So they see nothing wrong with offering unlimited plans to urban people. But even though I can get the internet, they see nothing wrong with charging me absolutely ridiculous prices for using it. So I could never have, I couldn't do Netflix or Apple TV, stuff like that, just chews up too many gigabytes. I can have basic internet and be very careful about any sort of video I might watch or any kind of a TV program, just a few now and then to keep the price down. But once I hit a certain limit, it becomes $5 a gigabyte, and the bill can just balloon astronomically in no time.
Councillor Gillespie.
It seems to be this hub thing is the big problem, because that's what was Mr. Burbridge on Shellard Road. He had the same thing, and it was this hub that he had to access his internet through was just ridiculously priced.
Yes, that's right. The fellow in Ward 4, I think he was on Bell. He had a Bell hub of some sort. I'm a Rogers hub, but the hubs, which are kind of cellular, they use a cell tower, I guess. And anyway, Rogers feels justified in charging that rate to me, even though after I complained and this woman in Pickering went to Go Public, they suddenly said they would give me a 50% off deal for 2 years. But again, I haven't seen my bill, so I think that's probably too good to be true. Well, I'll find
Councillor
out.
Gillespie, you weren't finished talking. Are you done? Did you want to add more?
No, I say that's the problem, and that a lot of people don't have even internet out Clyde area. I've had so many calls about internet out in Clyde. So Yeah, it's a huge problem, but
Okay, so we do want to do this resolution. We do
Yeah.
want to get it out. And I assume the two of you will be the mover and seconder of the resolution. Can we possibly have something by June 8th meeting, CEO McNeely?
Yes, Madam Mayor, certainly we can make that as part of the agenda for the 8th. And it would focus on one resolution, focusing on two interrelated issues. One is the availability of reliable, high-speed or broadband connectivity through the rural countryside. And the second part of that same resolution would be the exorbitant costs associated with day-to-day access of internet services.
Thank you, CEO McNeely. So going back on to the emails, the Grimsby commercial rent assistance, where they're asking for, I believe, an extension, is that not? And did we want to support this? Does anybody want to support this or leave it the way it is? Okay, seeing no comments, we'll move on to the next one, which is federal assistance by Montague.
Mayor Foxton, if you'd like to go back, we can do the resolution for item 10.1.
Okay, sorry. 10.1, which is?
This was the temporary stop sign at the intersection of Willison Street.
Oh, please, and that was moved by Councillor Rowland. Do I have a seconder for that, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Osner. So if you would please read the motion.
Certainly. So that is moved by Councillor Rowland and seconded by Councillor Osner, that the correspondence received from Mike Hack regarding traffic calming measures for Hall Street be received, and that council directs staff to introduce a bylaw to permit for a temporary three-way stop sign to be placed as soon as possible at the intersection of Willison Street and Hall Street, and that council add bylaw number 3163-20 as item 15.3 to the May 25th council agenda, being a bylaw to amend the traffic and parking bylaw to allow for a temporary stop sign to be placed at the intersection of Willison Street and Hall Street, and that staff return with a follow-up staff report on the status of the temporary stop sign at the October 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting. If that sounds fine to everybody? Okay.
Call the
Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. The next one I wanted to mention is the City of Kitchener, the support, financial support for municipalities. If you read that, that's 12.1.8. And it's where we're asking for between 10 and $15 billion for municipalities to offset the negative impact of the COVID-19. Did you want to support it or just leave it, ladies and gentlemen? I'm not seeing support. That's okay. We can move on to the next one. And I just wanted to mention it. It's again, City of Kitchener saying to the Prime Minister about a basic income for all citizens. Universal basic income. And I believe they were asking for $44 billion. Sorry, way above North Dumfries' spending range. A basic income is not a bad idea. I'm not sure. I think this is an issue that has to be addressed and come down from the federal and provincial governments and seeing how it can be handled and managed. So at this time, I think that's just for information, unless anyone wants to support it. Seeing no support for it, then we are now at the Regional Council minutes.
Madam Mayor, I believe we have to move a resolution to receive all the correspondence in that section.
Oh, yes, please.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Osner that the following items be received, and with the chair's permission, as presented on the in the agenda.
Okay.
So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland? Sorry, Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And next, we have the Regional Council meeting minutes of April 22nd. Do you want to read the motion, please?
Yeah. So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rowland that the following items be received. The Region of Waterloo Council minutes dated April 22nd, 2020 and May 13th, 2020. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. So the report from Councillor Gillespie, we've already dealt with that one, and CAO McNeely is going to draw up. I believe that was the one, Councillor Gillespie, yes, regarding the internet. So CAO McNeely is going to draw up a resolution in regards to that.
Yes.
So we won't be doing anything today. And the report from Councillor McCreary in regards to a review of the status of the Roadville Road construction. Councillor Councillor Gillespie, please.
Yeah, I want to speak about speeding as well and a bylaw matter. That was
Okay, go
on.
ahead.
The speeding thing is another thing that's come up. Just awful. As you will have heard, there was an awful accident on Branchton Road on Sunday morning. Someone was killed that was speeding as well. Lots of people from Branchton have commented on their Facebook page or whatever about getting a flashing speed sign. That likely would not have done anything for this particular accident, but I've been asking about getting one of those for a long time in Branchton and in Clyde. We've had one in Clyde. Nothing ever happens when we've put those things up there, but we're under the impression that those signs will slow down a few people going into the villages. The pylons they put up in Clyde, I don't think they've done anything. Do they do a study after that? Because I've heard comments about people that are stuck at home now looking at how fast the cars are going past their house right in the village of Clyde. So obviously things are just not working here at all. We need, police were sitting in Branchton yesterday after that accident trying to catch people, but that's after the fact too. They need to be out, like on all the roads. It's a problem on all the roads. I know Mr. Bittnell has been asking about the traffic calming things that are going to happen on Morrison Road. I don't know, are we putting traffic calming on every road?
CAO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, through you to Councillor Gillespie. So Branchton Road is a regional road. And unfortunately, that would require coordination, but also the permission of the region to install either traffic calming devices and or even those signage that have the flashing speed. Okay, I do know that those devices are available, but it would have to be through the region. And the same issue arises with a portion of Clyde Road as we enter Clyde itself. Once again, that portion that we're speaking of is a regional road in Clyde. So certainly I can bring those two areas to the region's transportation department as a follow-up. As it relates to broader Waterloo Region Police Service traffic enforcement, the concern that you raise about speeding is being experienced urban and rural across all of Waterloo Region. And in fact, during the COVID-19 shutdown, because traffic seemed to be generally lower, the police forces across Ontario seem to be witnessing higher traveled speeds on all roads, including the 400 series highways. I do know that the Traffic Enforcement Division from Waterloo Region Police Service has been out doing traffic enforcement on a periodic basis on a number of rural roads throughout North Dumfries. And when they've shared with us some of their experience in terms of high milers and or the number of people that they ticketed in a prescribed period of time, we have reshared that on Facebook and or Twitter just to reinforce that, first of all, police are out, but also the excessive speeds that we're witnessing. And it's very disappointing when you see some of those numbers. And it's disconcerting if I was a cyclist or a pedestrian using one of those streets as well. The regional police force has also coordinated with the various transportation departments across the region. This was started last year, identifying roads where we have chronic speeding related issues, and they do meet periodically. There are a number of roads in North Dumfries that have been flagged. Clyde and Branston roads are two of a number that have been previously posted with WRPS, and they are targeted roads for traffic enforcement as resources are available through the police service. So certainly I'll reinforce that again through the superintendent for South Command. But I do know that they have been out there. I've seen them myself as I've traveled various roads as part of my tours of various areas of the township. But I'll reinforce that message. As it relates specifically to Morrison Road and Mr. Bittnell, I did respond to an email from him that was about 2 weeks ago, if memory serves me correctly. We did do the speed travels or speed study, and the line marking for the pavement is scheduled as part of this year's project. So that will be done in the month of June, July. And once those pavement markings are down, we will go back and do a second speed trial to see if those pavement markings make any measurable change in terms of reducing or modulating speed on that stretch of road. And each road is its own unique circumstance, but certainly we'll see if the pavement markings assist in that portion of Morrison Road.
You're good, Councillor Gillespie?
Yes. So can you please follow up with the region on getting flashing lights in Branston particularly? That's like people have been asked, they want to put stop signs up on Morrison and, or Maple Manor and Branston Road, which I don't think is a good idea, but those flashing signs would be something, and we need to do something to make the residents look like we are concerned about this. I can talk as much as I want, but unless we do something, it's kind of fruitless.
Councillor Gillespie, why is a stop sign not a good idea for Maple Manor and Branston Road?
Well, because they're thinking, well, a lot of farm vehicles go up there, and if you have to stop a tractor and then get going again, that's going to cause even more problems with people passing tractors.
But isn't that only just one spot?
Pardon me?
Wouldn't that be just one spot? The rest of it is pretty straightforward. There aren't many stops on that.
No, there are no stop signs on Branston Road at all. But I don't know if that's the greatest idea to get. I guess it would stop people, but it could make people more aggressive.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I want to sort of think about that idea of a stop sign, though. I don't think it may be a totally bad thing.
Well, I think if we get flashing lights up, like a flashing speed sign up, I know they have one going into Glen Morris. If you're going a little bit fast, you slow down. I think they work.
Okay. Well, CEO McNeely will look into it, correct, CEO McNeely?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'll send that's those two sections of road, Branston Road in the vicinity of the village, as well as Clyde Road in the vicinity of the village. to the region's transportation department, asking for speed activated signage with flashing lights if you're over whatever the tolerable limit.
CEO McNeely, instead of just asking them for it for one time, can we ask that we can do it like 12 times per year or something like that, some number, so we don't have to keep going back to them every time we want to do it?
Is it council's desire that there actually be permanent installation of these traffic modulating signs?
Yes,
I
I would.
see Councillor Rowland shaking his head. Councillor Gillespie, and Councillor Ockner, yes. Councillor McCreary?
Yes, and I would like to add that perhaps Roseville Road around the village of Roseville should be added to this. I have something about that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that we're going to leave the sign there 12 months a year, but I want to be allowed on specific roads to do it 12 times a year when we want to, without having to go through the region every single time we want something. Councillor Rollerman.
I kind of like the idea of the permanent ones, like the kind you see on Watts Pond Road or going into Washington or into Plattsville. I think that'd be good to have.
CEO McNeely, thoughts?
So it is a regional corridor. I just need to know what council's wish is in terms of what am I communicating to the region? Because there are two different kinds of signage. The intermittent posting is fairly simple exercise, whereas the more permanent signage, it's a different capital cost, and there may or may not be unique installation costs in terms of either solar and or hydro connections to power it up for the longer term. So I don't know what the region, first of all, from a philosophy perspective, nor do I know whether in their operational budgets they would have that flexibility. So I need to know what council's preference is, and then that will be communicated to Region's Transportation Department. And I would anticipate we'll get an answer back one way or the other, which I bring back to council as an outcome.
So can we do it twofold? Part A would be that we would request a permanent installation on the road. And we may have to share the cost of that. We have to discuss if we're willing to do that. And part B would be if A is not appropriate, then we would like to have the ability to put signs out there as per township's desire without going back every time to the region. And I'm sure you'll word it much better than me, CEO McNeely.
Okay, so the only question I now have is Councillor Gillespie's presentation obviously spoke to two separate roads, regional roads within Ward 4. Councillor McCreary has flagged Roseville Road, which is obviously in Ward 3. And you may have seen some of the posts from the township via the police service. And they've been out several times over the last month and have disappointingly found a significant number of high milers in that zone. And we've tried to push out that as part of a broader public education information exercise. But do we wish to include Roseville Road in the east and west approaches to the village of Roseville as part of this same request?
Yes, I think so. Councillor Ockner?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Councillor McCreary, you suggested it, so I assume you're a yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I have the three roads. I have my marching orders. And,
Thank you. Councillor McCreary, you want to talk about the road construction for Roseville Road?
Yes. I wanted to update council about the status of that reconstruction project. In April, council approved report Public Works 7-2020, and that had in it our preferred design options. And that was sent to the chief engineer in charge of the project, Jeff Ninehouse. So I had a conversation with him. I wanted to find out what he thought about the report. And we had highlighted that we would like to see a three-way stop at the corner of Roseville Road and Fisher-Hallman Road. And he's not as supportive of that. And this is a concern because that is a community safety zone. And we do have a lot of speeding there. And I would like to share with you why he wasn't going to support the three-way stop. It was a bit of a disappointing conversation, I must say. He said he doesn't believe that the residents of Roseville want the three-way stop. When he was at the Public Information Center, he didn't recall hearing that. And he thinks that maybe council wants the three-way stop, but the residents of Roseville no. He said there's no evidence that the three-way stop would make the area safer for pedestrians, or wouldn't make it any safer than the island, the proposed island. And he also said there's no evidence that that's a dangerous intersection because there have not been a lot of reported collisions. So also there was a traffic count that he had supplied to us. The traffic count was done in 2016. He said the traffic count doesn't warrant any changes to traffic control at the intersection. And my concern about relying on this traffic count is the fact that it was done in 2016. We did request that they do another one. And initially the region was going to do one in the summer of 2020, this summer, but they decided not to go ahead with that because of the problems with the pandemic has changed traffic patterns so much. They thought that the information won't be useful. So they've canceled that. And what they're going to do instead of a revised traffic count is they're going to take the 2016 report and they're going to assume that traffic at the intersection has increased by 2% annually. Like they're going to extrapolate it by 2% annually. And I asked, well, why 2%? Like where does this come from? That's sort of a rule of thumb that they use with these reports, that generally you're going to see 2% growth in anywhere you are. There's going to be 2% growth. And I pointed out to him maybe 2% was not appropriate for that area when you consider the housing developments that are going in just north of there on Fisher-Hallman Road. But he doesn't believe that that construction is going to have any significant impact on the intersection and that the 2% growth estimate that they're going to use will be fine. And he already knows right now with that 2% will not warrant a three-way stop at that intersection. So the construction is going to take place in 2022, and they will be relying on a 2016 traffic study, which is then 6 years old. The engineer said he was going to do a report recommending just the pedestrian island, which is something. There was nothing there to protect pedestrians before. He's going to recommend the pedestrian island. His report will include our report, North Dumfries Council's interests or desires, what we would like to see there, but he's not going to support the three-way stop. And this report, he's hoping to get it ready for the Planning and Works Committee on June the 16th. And I guess in the end, Regional Council will have the final say over the design, but there, I guess, is going to be a bit of a difference between what Council would like to see and what I think the people in Roseville would like to see and what the region of Waterloo is willing to do.
Thank you for bringing this up, Councilor McCreary. I'm at Regional Council tomorrow, and I'm going to address this tomorrow. I don't like the three-way stop. I like the three-way lights, and the same way they did further down at Dickey Settlement. I would like to see temporary three-way lights in there done as a study, just as the region has done at Dickey Settlement. I think people do rolling stops, and I think they pay more attention to lights than not. You're absolutely right. The 2% is ridiculous, especially on the development and growth up on Fisher-Hallman and the continued growth that's going to be there. 2% is a very unrealistic number. So I'll bring this up at Regional Council Public Works tomorrow. Thank you very much for this information.
Thank you, Mayor Foxton.
Mayor Foxton.
Yes, Councilor Rollman and then SCO McNeely.
Mayor Foxton, I was at that public meeting as well, and the residents were concerned about how to cross from the north side of Roseville to the south side to get to the community center. And we talked about pedestrian island, and the region, whatever his name was, he agreed the problem is pedestrian islands are not that safe, And he said the best way to cross the street is at a stop sign or a traffic light with stop blocks, painted stop blocks. He admitted that. Councilman Creary and I talked to him about it, and then he turned around and says later on in the report, oh, I'm not in favor of a three-way stop, even though he told everybody at the meeting the safest way to cross the street is at a stop block.
Yep. Thank you very much. I've got all this written down, and I will deal with it tomorrow, Councilman McCreary. And then CEO McNeely, I'm sorry I keep pushing you aside.
I just like to point out too that the traffic island, the effectiveness of that traffic island is going to be reduced because we did have at the open house, there were some farmers that came in and pointed out the fact that they could not get their vehicles around the traffic island. So the engineers said, well, we can solve that problem by allowing it to be mountable, meaning the curbs would be low so that vehicles could drive up onto the traffic island and they could get around it. Well, that automatically reduces considerably the effectiveness of the protection of the traffic island if vehicles can drive up onto it. So it's reducing the ability of the island to protect pedestrians. So if we went to a three-way stop, we then would not have the problem with the vehicles getting around the pedestrian island as well.
CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, the region quite correctly identifies in their official plan and in their transportation master plan the need for communities to move away from reliance on a motor vehicle and promote more active transportation. So active transportation is, as examples, cycling and walking. And obviously the more trips within the village that we can accommodate and encourage through proper facilities and safety would remove the reliance on automobile trips for some of these short destination visits, such as going to the church, the community center, or the neighborhood park. The program, as we've talked about, is focused really at the intersection of Roseville and Fisher Hallman. And that itself is a pinch point where we cannot, in our opinion, safely cross from the north to the south side of the road or vice versa. There's two other issues. The other is they're not proposing to build even a temporary asphalt sidewalk within the boulevard between, on the east side of Fisher Hallman from the Roseville intersection up to Paul Avenue. And they've identified that the earliest that would occur would be 2028. So that's quite a significant lag of time, and yet there's really no safe means of taking that active transportation between that quadrant of Roseville and bring them down to the intersection where they could then access the community center or the park. The other concern I have is the township also raised the need to modulate speed on the east and west approaches on Roseville Road before you enter the village, because it's a much higher speed on the east and west approaches, and then you drop down to the 50 kilometers within the village boundary. And the problem is cars are coming in with a high rate of speed, and they really never slow down. Although they may drop their speed marginally, they're still coming into the village at a high rate of speed, and they continue through the length of the village in that form. We had also asked for modulation in the form of traffic calming as part of the east and west approaches to Roseville. And this becomes critical if there's not going to be a stop control, whether it be through signals and or stop signs at the intersection of Fisher Hallman and Roseville, because a lot of that traffic is a throughput, east or west, and it's basically a straight line shot, and the cars are traveling at a higher rate of speed because of that.
Okay, so I've got my walking papers for tomorrow. Thank you very much for the information. I've got my notes down here. Now we're on item number 15, the bylaws. Bylaw number 3162-20 being a bylaw to provide an interim tax levy in 2020. And that is moved by Councilor Bowman and seconded by Councilor Gillespie. And the clerk, please read the bylaw.
Certainly. So there's going to be the 3 bylaws added. So that the following bylaws be taken as read a first and second time, moved by Councillor Rowland and seconded by Councillor Gillespie. Bylaw number 3162-20 being a bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy in 2020. Bylaw number 3163-20 being a bylaw to establish fees and charges for various services provided by the Township of North Dumfries. And also council is adding bylaw number 3164-20. I just want to correct that I had said 3163 earlier, so I will make that that administrative change. Being a bylaw to amend the traffic and parking bylaw to allow for a temporary stop sign be placed at the intersection of Willison Street and Hall Street. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And so now we're reading the next bylaw, the third reading of the bylaws.
Yeah, so that's moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor McCreary that the following bylaws be taken as read a third time and finally passed. Bylaw number 3162-20 being a bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy in 2020. Bylaw number 3163-20 being a bylaw to establish fees and charges for various services provided by the Township of North Dumfries. And bylaw number 3164-20 being a bylaw to amend the traffic and parking bylaw to allow for a temporary stop sign to be placed at the intersection of Willison Street and Hall Street. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And Ashley, would you please bring those resolutions for my signing when you come over for the other documents for me to sign?
Yes, yeah, I can do that.
Thank you. And next we have the bylaw number 3161-20 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council.
Yeah, so moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Ossner that bylaw number 3161-20 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on May 25th, 2020 be read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, signed, and sealed by the mayor and clerk. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Thank you. And next is moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Mollman in regards to the business of the council meetings. Do you want to read that, please?
So that whereas business before this council meeting has been completed at 12:28 p.m. and be it resolved that this meeting adjourns and meets again on Monday, June 8th, 2020. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried. So we are now adjourned.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a safe week.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for the information for regional council.